This is Jonathan Banks, and you are listening to the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse.
And first of all, I want to thank Al Ayman, the best manager in the world.
He's the fucking champion of the world! Miguel, man!
Adonis Stevenson, piece of shit.
No, I think Rosado a good boy. Rosado's a good boy.
I've become a massive international superstar. It's as simple as that.
I eat your asshole alive, you bitch! Scared of the real man. I'll fuck you till you love me, faggot.
I'm going to physically shoot David Hay. He fucking glassed me. He glassed me. Derek, who's out?
I'm Shannon Briggs. I'm hard to kill. I'm the black Steven Seagal. I'm hard to fucking kill.
First off the bat, lads, you know, the big talking point, obviously, we're going to have to kind of bow down, so to speak, get on the hands and knees and praise to the Lord. Miguel Cotto grabs the oldest lineal title in boxing at present. It dates back to the days of Bernard Hopkins. Not stopping, Sergio Martinez retired by his corner after the 9th round. I think we all said it last week, in all honesty. I'll go up first, you know, I'm the one that's going to eat humble pie. Cotto, fair play to him, he had to get in the ring and still win the fight, but let's be real here. You know, the last 10 minutes of last week's show, you know, we were very, very clear. Cotto took that fight because he knew Sergio Martinez was crippled. Now, I didn't appreciate as to how crippled he was from the off there last night. You know, from what we understand, he didn't do any sparring for the fight, obviously trying to make sure the knee was going to hold up so he can get to the fight and get one last payday. But unable to take a shot, you know. Cotto very, very quick last night, hurt him with every left hook that he landed there. But, you know, Martinez had no answer. You know, if you talk about Martinez pre-Chavez, I think he'd have dealt with Cotto there last night. You know, he was limping around about the ring. His lateral movement was very, very poor, getting caught on the ropes. You know, as I says to Alistair, just off topic actually, or off the show, Alistair, you know, I says to you this, he couldn't get any power in his shots because A, he couldn't get any power on his lead foot in order to land his power shots. You know, that being the case, is all you can do is just kind of basically jab and move and try your best. At the end of the day as well, you know, what can you do about it if your legs are just going to betray you at all times?
Yeah, I mean, I actually feel very, very sorry for Sergio Martinez. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to say he gypped the fans by even coming into the fight in that kind of condition. But the fact is he was given a career high payday last night. I do feel sorry for him because he's had a stellar career up until this point. Well, the latest run of his career has been very stellar, but by far the biggest exposure he's going to get is on this fight, and the legacy he's going to leave, unfortunately, in a lot of people's minds is going to be last night's performance, and they're not necessarily going to understand the context of how Sergio Martinez looked last night. I mean, it was clear from round one that he just wasn't there with the right knee. He couldn't put his weight on it. He couldn't pivot off it. He therefore couldn't get the power in his shots. He's a guy whose defence revolves almost entirely around distance and being elusive on his feet. I know he mixes up body movement in as well, but if you take away the foot movement, an integral part of his defence is gone, which is why he was open to that left hook, particularly with his right hand low as he carries it. This is a second easy title grab in a row for Miguel Cotto. I thought going to get up against Yuri Foreman, he had another guy with knee injuries, pretty much the softest belt holder at 154 at the time. He got an easy belt grab there. He didn't manage to stop a guy with one knee then, and this time he didn't manage to get a guy out of there who was in front of him, couldn't survive basically. Well, he did his level best to survive, but he couldn't give anything back. He had questionably one good knee, and again it was a corner retirement. It wasn't even a legit stoppage. No. I thought he did look good. That said, I thought Cotto looked quite good. His timing was good and so forth, but I think to put it in perspective, I'd have expected him to take him out in the second round in that fight, to be honest, and he didn't.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was sitting in the first round saying to myself, this is going to be over before the first round was actually even over. But second round, Martinez, he's come up the hard way. He's had to battle for everything he's earned in the sport, and he hung in there. I think it was Roy Jones mentioned in round 2, he says his knees just completely gave out on him, and there wasn't even a punch landed at that point. He just, even just if he came in close, he couldn't even spin off him. And that was one thing that Martinez did great against Chavez on the ropes, was when he was on the ropes here, maybe 4 or 5 punch flurry, and he got out of distance. He just couldn't do it there last night. I've played football at I'm not going to blow my own trumpet, but I've played semi-professional football, junior level, so to speak. For the Americans, it's semi-professional soccer. And at that level, you've got to have, speed, and you've got to have good timing to get past your opponents. Now, bear in mind here, I've got, Martinez has had 2 operations on the same knee for the same injury in the last 24 months, maybe even less than that. That's almost career-ending injuries. Now, I had a mate who did his cruciate ligaments. He was a left winger. And when he came back after, I think it was about 2 years he was out, because he had to go private and get it all sorted out and stuff like that. He was never the same player. He didn't have the same pace to try and beat an opponent, couldn't get past him. And he said it himself, he says, my knee feels like it's going to reset itself for just a fraction of a second. He can feel it himself. There's some great professional football players I've seen in the past and stuff that, once that knee ligament injury goes, they're never the same player sometimes. But, Steve, mate, going into that last night, you just couldn't foresee somehow that Cotto was actually going to just blasting about the ring like that in the first round.
No, I didn't see Cotto blasting him around the ring. I mean, respect to Cotto, I suppose, is the first Puerto Rican fighter to win world championships in 4 weight divisions, but I just couldn't believe that the way he bullied Martinez around the ring, and Martinez couldn't get out the way of the left hook. Cotto was winning the exchanges on the inside. Martinez wasn't even having any success on the outside. He couldn't land the left hand. Every left hand he threw, Cotto was blocking it, or he was falling short. He looked afraid, he looked tentative. He had no mobility whatsoever. We asked the question last week about Martinez's knees, and they were just completely gone. He's basically, for all intents and purposes, a shot fighter. And I think it was a good point you made earlier there. He's done things the hard way. You've got to remember, this guy's had a good career. He had to relocate to Spain to get fights after the Margarito loss. He's fought over in the UK and Ireland. You remember his fights with Richard Williams and Adrian Stone? This is the guy who's had to do things the hard way, and he got his chance very late in life, when he got the Alex Bonema fight and then fought the likes of Cintron and Paul Williams and that. And it's just not there anymore. His body's done after 55-odd fights, but I didn't expect Cotto to be bashing him around like that. The camp must have known the state Martinez was in. Nobody realised just what condition he was in. He couldn't move.
As a Martinez fan, I'm going to have to lay some blame at the door here of Martinez as well. I know he's trying to safeguard his payday at the end of the day, but if you're not sparring before a fight and you know that you are fucked, and you're telling us that you're 100% fit. I said last week, if he is close to 100% fit, he should handle Cotto. But I did say at the same time, as the only reason Cotto took that fight is because he knew that Martinez was a cripple. Now, at the same time, as Martinez knows he goes into that fight fucked, Alex, he's got to take a fair bit of the blame, because there's guys there paying good money for pay-per-view their money last night, and it was a wee bit like Dick Turpin, without the mask on at the end of the day. Alex, is Mike fucking up again?
He's too upset.
He's got a knee injury, he's pulled out.
Come on, Alex, mate. I'll go to you, mate. We obviously we were speaking off air, we're talking about, for instance, Larry Holmes beating the shit out of Muhammad Ali when he was shot to shit. People hated on him for it. At the same time as well, we've seen a lot of people trying to give Cotto credit for that win there last night, when deep down he knew what he was facing. It was a shot fighter.
Yeah, I mentioned De La Hoya Pacquiao. People have been getting to me on Twitter saying, "Oh, well, you picked Martinez to win." Yeah, I did. I said I thought he was past it, but you never know until you get in the ring. How far gone these guys are. He was completely done. He not just his legs. He couldn't take a shot at all. The way Cotto was hurting him, you'd think Golovkin was in the ring with him. Cotto was hurting him every time. He's just completely done. Cotto took the fight on. He beat the guy. He absolutely destroyed him. No one really predicted that, so you got to give him the credit. But how much credit? You can only go by what you see in the ring. And the Cotto fans who are saying how great he is now after that win. Yeah, I can totally understand that they're happy and everything. But they're not wanting to see Cotto go in with Golovkin next or someone like that. Because they know, that guy in there was a shot fighter. And look at Darren Barker. I mean, he went into the Stern fight, big payday. What was it, £1 million he earned from it? He knew he was close to the end. But he went in there thinking, maybe I can pull out this victory. Maybe I can, somehow get the win. He was done after the first round, and I think it's the same Martinez. He took that fight on, like you've said. He came up the hard way. Took him years to get respect and financial benefits from the sport. He doesn't want to leave the sport. I said looking back, he should have retired in Argentina against Murray. He scraped that win. I thought he was very lucky to get that win. That would have been the fitting end for him. But this big fight come along, and when you've worked hard, when you haven't been receiving monster paydays for years. I suppose he couldn't turn it down. He probably turned up in the hope that maybe, he could catch him with a Paul Williams type shot, or some kind of big punch, because Cotto obviously is the one moving up, and he's been at, in a lot of tough fights himself. He just wasn't to be. He wasn't there. I mean, Roach has annoyed me a lot this week, because in the build-up he was saying, Martinez is done, his legs are gone, he's got nothing left. One of his quotes was, Chavez only trained for 5 days in there for their fight, and he almost beat him because he was at the end. But now he's saying, I don't want to hear no excuses. Cotto beat him because he's better, and he's always beat him. So, what is it? And now he's trashing Golovkin, saying he's never heard of the guy, he doesn't know who he is. Well, let's make the fight and let's see who he is.
Alex, you back with us, mate?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Yeah, that's what you get for having a Poundland mic, I guess. Where were we? We were talking about Martinez, Cotto, obviously. I think that the issue with Martinez, taking fans' money and stuff is that, you could argue that some people would, demand a refund for that, and I wouldn't begrudge them for that, because as you've already mentioned about the Barker fight, I think that was a complete and total farce. And just in the fight itself, you saw Martin...
Alex, you've cut out, mate.
You need to spend more than 99p on this mic.
You spent £1, Kurt.
It needs to be $1.99 for the next mic.
Carry on, mate. Try again.
Hello.
I can hear you now. Hello, go on.
Jesus Christ, right.
The depression's in your voice, mate, I can hear it.
It's grating me down, mate. Fucking Frotch went in.
It's a bad fortnight for us, isn't it?
It's just fucking horrible, mate. Where were we? Right, yeah. To be fair to Cotto, he landed a lot of power shots. He was very accurate, but you can put that partially down to the way Martinez fought last night. Martinez on form wouldn't get hit with nearly, I think, 50% of all the shots that Cotto threw, and power punches as well. That left hook, as we've already mentioned, just found a home all night. And even with Martinez just constantly circling to his left to get away from that left hook, he just he still found a home, and he couldn't do anything about it. I thought in round 3 he did quite well with his jab. He was sort of sticking that out there, keeping Cotto at bay a little bit, and arguably you could give him that round. But other than that, he was just absolute shit, and I hope he retires. And thankfully he never got in the ring with Golovkin in that state, because he would have just been fucking flattened.
Yeah, but actually, would bear thinking about, actually, no, honestly. But getting back on the fact about Cotto. Now, if you look at the state, I'll just open up to all you guys. You look at the state that Martinez there last night. Would Cotto have had the balls to get in the ring in that condition last night? Bearing in mind that he said pre-rematch against Margarito that he would not basically willing to put his life on the line or his career on the line in a circumstance like, for instance, where Margarito's eye was fucked up and stuff. Do you think Cotto would have had the balls to step in that ring there last night in a similar condition as to what Martinez was?
No, but I also think Cotto's got three or four fights left in him, and that would have been in the back of his mind. Whereas for Sergio, this was his last cash out, so he just took the biggest check he could get, I think.
Fire away, lads.
Was it true that Martinez hadn't even sparred a single round, or do you mean he hadn't sparred many rounds, or...?
Rumour is that he didn't spar at all.
That strikes me as a scam for the fans. I mean, just like, I don't know, it's difficult to listen to someone not sparring even a round. I mean, there's no ambiguity over the fact that he knows he's screwed and he's going out to cash out. There's not even...
You've got to remember as well, Steve, he was still on crutches in January as well.
Sergio never sparred.
So, I mean... It didn't look good for him, but it's like you never knew the true extent of how bad it was until the truth was going to be told in the ring. I mean, that was the only way, and I think after 2 minutes it was fairly obvious he had literally nothing, and it was only going to be a matter of time. I mean, I think Andy said it. It didn't look like he was going to go out the round, and I thought the ref was going to stop it because his leg, I think his right leg it looked gone at that point. And to be fair, he did look better during the middle rounds. He was moving a little bit better, but that first round was terrible for him.
I'm going to get back to Alex. Are you there, mate? Anyways, if you talk about class last night, if that is his last fight, Martinez went out with a great deal of dignity. And I know he may have shortchanged the fans, but didn't offer up any excuses like Cotto's done in the past. Like he did in that face off with Margarito with his silly wee iPad about the hand wraps, and not having the class to do the post fight interview after he got beat off Trout and Mayweather and stuff like that. That's the mark of the man, and I think Cotto should, for future reference, Kurt, pay attention to a class individual such as Sergio Martinez.
Well, he's very good. I mean, not just Sergio, but also Lou DiBella. They've said there's no excuses. He got caught with a punch in the first round. He was hurt. He didn't recover. I mean, deep down they know, but they're the type of guys they don't want to use it as an excuse. They went in there. They obviously knew about how bad he was, but they still believed he could pull it off, and it wasn't to be. So that you very rarely see that from fighters. I remember Tommy Hearns had the injury and he didn't let it on for years, and in the end he didn't even let it on, and it was Emmanuel Stewart who actually let on that. I think he broke his hand in the first round against Marvin Hagler, but he didn't want to take anything away from the guy's victory. And as you saw with someone like David Hay, who blames the loss on his little toe, we need to see more of that from fighters. Let the fans decide if excuses are legit, but you go in there and you just say, I gave it my best and it wasn't to be, and the fans are not stupid. We can see, with a guy like Sergio, a guy like De La Hoya, it's obvious, when they're past it and gone.
Steve, mate, what next for Cotto? I mean, obviously, I actually got told today on Twitter that he's the lineal champion, but he's still a number 2 fighter in the division. I think if you're the lineal champion, you've got to be number 1 in the division. So that being the case, surely you've got to be wanting Golovkin to fight him next, which will never happen. So I'm really thinking that it's going to be either Mayweather or maybe even Canelo if he can somehow get himself onto Showtime.
Well, now that he's a fully bona fide middleweight, he's going to have to step up and fight the man, isn't he? I mean, it's going to have to be Chris Eubank Jr. next. He's going to have to prove himself. I'd like to see him going in with Golovkin, I think. It'd be a wholly different story from last night. Once Golovkin started landing the punches, I don't think Cotto will be as smart as he thinks he is. But just one final word on Martinez before the lads carry on there. I mean, he has been a credit to the sport, in all fairness. I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, whether he sparred or not, the fact the fella went 10 rounds and kept getting up and keeping on going, that's not really shortchanging anybody in that respect. So fair play to him. He's had a good long career. I've enjoyed his fights over the years, so fair play to him. But let's get Cotto and Golovkin in there. I suppose that's what I'd like to see.
Definitely, I want to see that fight. And on just one final point on Martinez, he has fought the bigger guy, so to speak. I mean, he's no real. I wouldn't say he's a massive middleweight, especially if you compare him to the likes of Murray, the likes of Chavez, etc. So I think he's done pretty well considering. But obviously, it just comes to that point. He hasn't got that skill set that maybe Hopkins has got for longevity, Alistair. But what next for Cotto? I mean, have you got any final comments on Martinez, and what next for Cotto?
No, I mean, I just echo what Steve said about Martinez. Really, I think he absolutely nailed it. For Cotto, he's going to go for Mayweather rematch. Freddie Roach is already saying that calling out Mayweather as being shot, which is basically saying that's the fight they're looking for because it's the most money. Can't blame him for wanting to take the money, but realistically, I'd like to see him in there with Golovkin because that's another guy who. He's in his prime at the minute and it's getting pissed away with fights that are meaningless or people ducking him. Cotto, you could put him on the map and you can't have a legitimate claim to the welterweight lineal title. I don't know, I guess they don't strip him or make it mandatory, but they should do if he doesn't actually fight Golovkin, because like you said, Golovkin's the man in the division, Cotto's number 2, and based on the guy he beat last night, you wouldn't even moving up hypothetically, if we were running our own ranking systems, we'd barely move him up at all at welterweight, at middleweight for what he did last night, because it was so obvious that the guy wasn't fit to compete with him.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I compile your site rankings in all honesty, and I was very close to dumping Martinez off the rankings because he hadn't fought for over a year. But the simple fact is, because he had a fight arranged, I kept him on there. But Alex, mate, is your mic back working yet?
I don't know what's worse, his mic or Martinez's knee.
I think his microphone's shorter than fucking Martinez's knee, actually. Come on, Alex, mate.
Both completely debilitating, right?
Yeah. You know, if you're going to pull out here, if you're going to do a David Hay against Tyson Fury here, mate, you know, Rob Palmer's not going to be happy with you because you've got a lot of questions to answer.
This is another Cal Brooks situation. This is he Rob's after him and he's pulling out. I can sense it.
If he texts in his comments, we can read them out for him.
Yeah, we could do, but I don't know. I've actually shouted him on the chat there and he hasn't got back to us. Anyways, guys, you get any other final comments on the fight at all? You know, just you know, if Martinez does decide to retire, you know, he's had a good career, but I still think, you know, he's maybe shortchanged a few fans there last night. Now, you know, it's brave at the end of the day. I know he's got in there. You know, you can't ask for more. He's done his best, but at the same time as well, I've always been brought up as if you fight or play on with an injury, you're only in fighting trouble for yourself.
If Tommy goes to Cotto's next fight and it's not against Golovkin, I want him to take a massive banner that says "Fight Golovkin, bitch."
Well, I think Tommy's in the mix for chat at the minute. I think he saw they call him Cotto and his wee fat pal Brian holding hands today with the same T-shirts on. So I wonder if he got a picture of him and just maybe says to him, "Fight fucking Golovkin, you bitch."
I think as well, you know, with Martinez, you know, being classy and, you know, not saying it was an injury and saying it was just the punches that caught him, you know, I think it's fairly obvious the guy's not going to fight ever again. And if it was the case, what they're saying, you know, he just got caught by a punch, you'd see him back in the ring. But, you know, his trainer was the only one who was really revealing the truth. You know, he said his knees are gone and, you know, it's a sad way to go. But, you know, sometimes a champion needs to be blasted into retirement. It would have been better if it was a younger guy though who would be a force at middleweight. You know, Cotto, you know, for us, you know, he's a Hall of Famer and everything. He's not really a proper middleweight, and that's the only bad point to this, I think.
Does Golovkin take the short end of the money in order to get that fight?
Yeah, he should do. Yeah, he should take whatever's money as long as he's got to, because that is a fight that will propel him on the world stage.
6 rounds. I put money on that with anyone. 6 rounds, Golovkin stops him.
I know they say anything can happen in boxing, but I cannot see Golovkin losing that fight. Can't see any way possible that Cotto would beat him.
I'm going to try Alex once more time before we move on. Alex, mate, come on, step up to the plate.
I think we should just call him Cal from now on.
Aye. Right, anyways. I never saw much of the undercard at all, lads. You know, the Wilfred Vasquez Jr., he lost 10 round split decision against Marvin Sonsona. I heard it was pretty much a shit fest. Andy Lee, though, I think he had probably the best knockout of the evening. I think it was a check right hook or something that really just knocked over John Jackson. I think he was getting pretty much toyed with. I think. Did anybody see the fight? Nah.
Yeah, I saw it.
On you go, mate.
I thought it was a good knockout from Lee. He was getting knocked about a bit beforehand, but he pulled the right hook out and ended the fight. He's got that right hook in his locker, Lee. He's pulled that out before against Carl Daniels. I think he knocked him out a few years ago, and against Craig McEwen. If you remember that fight, he was losing that fight, and I think it was the right hook.
Good fight, that.
It was a good fight. McEwen sort of the gas tank emptied very quickly, but Lee pulled it out. The thing is about Lee, there's sort of like a fragility about him. He's the type of guy who looks like he takes a couple of punches and then he looks like he's about to get stopped. He gets very ragged very quickly, but that lad Jackson he was in with there, he hadn't got anything really other than the big right hand. That was
his dad,
That was his power punch. I mean, he wasn't throwing a jab, he wasn't trying to work any lateral movement or anything like that. He was just going for the big right hand, and once Lee pulled the right hook, it was all over. But Jackson hadn't got a lot else to offer. But I think you got to give respect to Lee too, because he stuck in there. He didn't, he didn't start feeling sorry for himself, and he didn't quit, and he pulled the knockout out in the end. So people have questioned his heart in the past. I remember John Breen calling him the Tin Man, before an Irish title fight, saying he's got no heart. But I thought he showed a set of balls last night and stuck in there,
Well, I mean, I watched his last fight in Denmark, actually, against that Frank Horta, and, since he's been teamed up with Adam Booth, do you think he's regressed in any sort of way? I think he has.
I suppose he has a wee bit, yeah. I mean, I don't think he should be down at light middleweight. I think he looked like a skeleton at the weigh-in, and like you said, in Denmark, he didn't look impressive at all, but he hasn't got... I don't know, he just looks drawn out, and he should maybe get himself back up to middleweight. I don't think he belongs down there, but he's never changed his style. He's always looked like that way when he's in against a big puncher. His back was so caved in last night, and his arms were out like a crab, and he was thinking to himself, every time Jackson hits me, I'm going to try and hold on to him. I don't want to engage with him on the inside. He's always had that sort of fearsome style about him, and I don't know whether he's regressed or not. I just think he's maybe found his level, and he's sort of that fringe world level belt holder sort of region, and he might get himself another crack at the title. Good luck to him. He is a lovely fella, so I hope he does. Yeah, I spoke to him over in Germany, actually. He's a nice guy, but I agree with you. I think he's just destined maybe just to fall short unless he picks up. who you go at light middleweight at the minute? I mean, Canelo, and you've obviously got Andrade fighting Rose next week, so I just think, whichever way he goes, north or south, I think he's going to find it struggle against any of the belt holders. Well, he should have fought. He should have cashed in and fought Macklin when the fight was on the table. He had a few fights in Limerick back in about 2011, I think it was. I went down to them. Macklin was in the press conferences. There was a lot of talk about it. Emmanuel Stewart wanted the fight, and we thought it would have sold out, even European title or maybe even above. But it was never made, and it's just fallen by the wayside now. Was Macklin no the guy that kind of talked him, or not really talked himself out the fight? But I always got the impression with Macklin was that he wasn't really keen on fighting any of the domestic guys like Lee, Barker, Murray, and all those guys. I always got that impression of him. I mean, I even said if he won the world title, he wouldn't fight those guys.
He looks like he thinks he's at the higher level to me.
Yes, he's above them. Yeah, that's right.
And I don't personally, I don't see that myself, but that's what he believes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Did you hear the? Sorry, just one thing. What's in my head? Were you guys watching the Box Nation feed, the Top Rank feed?
Yeah, did I?
Did you hear who? I'm not sure who the lady is who commentates with the Colonel.
Is it Christina Poncher or something like that?
Something like that.
Something.
Yeah.
Did you? I had to laugh whenever Lee got the knockout and Larry Merchant said something like, if only Emmanuel Stewart was around now to see that Andy Lee score that knockout, and she said something like, oh, he is around, Larry, he's here right now with us, or something. I was like, what the fuck? She got a freaking Ouija board out of the ring or something.
She should be behind the sink doing the dishes, actually. I don't know if any of you guys got to see any of the German card, actually. David Price went 10 rounds for the first time.
Yeah, I saw the Price fight.
I never saw much of it. Kurt, again, mate, the still fragility's there. No inside work. I mean, I thought he was pawing with that jab there last night as well. There's no authority sometimes behind that jab.
No, I mean, if you want to look at the positives, it's the fact that he went 10 rounds, but even then he looked pretty fucked, to be honest. I mean, he looked very tired again, and he doesn't seem to have the same confidence in letting his hands go. I mean, the jab, I think he's always had a problem with pouring with it instead of using it as a weapon. But it's the right hand. I mean, if you think of him, when he was, drilling Harrison and guys like that, he was really letting that right hand go with power, and he just seems reluctant to do it as much because I don't know if he's wary of what's coming back. But the guy he was facing, was a big guy, he was about 6'4", and he gave it his best shot. But I'm just worried about Price when he steps up again because, to be honest, I don't see I know that the hype, I think, was way too over the top for him, and, he was beating the guys who put in front of him. He was doing it really well as well, but, I just don't see much improvement. He's still letting guys just walk straight up to him now, and his chest's getting close, and people going about his chin, but his actual ability, I'm not sure how good it is, and he's also, I don't think the stamina's that much. And
yeah, he was breathing out his arse after about 7 rounds.
Price is the type of guy you'd like to see do well because he's a really nice guy, but I'm not sure. Euro level at best. That's the best I reckon I can see. I mean, I know I'm not saying he can't get a title shot in today's heavyweight division, but I just can't see him being better than that, to be honest.
Yeah. Also in the car I watched Cecilia Brakhus, the Norwegian WBO, WBC and WBA welterweight champion. She beat Jessica Balogun over a 10-round decision. And I'm actually quite looking forward to see what this guy does on the world scene. This Tyrone Zigwa, he beat Armand Kuliha over I think it was 9-round stoppage. I think he was quite a tasty amateur back in his day. Jürgen Bremer, I don't know if any of you guys seen the fights. I had it on kind of side by side with the Paul Butler fight last night. Pretty much, had his own way and I wouldn't say eked out. He actually kind of dominated over the 12 rounds, 119-108 twice and 118-109 on the cards. Going on to the card from Newcastle last night, which was, had its moments, good main event. Good stoppage. I don't know if anybody saw the Bradley Saunders fight against Vili Pitmio. I tell you what, that left hook. I'm not going to liken him to anybody, but that left hook reminded me of how Alfredo Gomez used to throw these punches.
Yeah, and the guy was supposed to be a durable guy as well, and he's supposed to, even though he wasn't expected to win or anything, he wasn't supposed to get rid of him that quick. But the body shot just went straight in there, and he was rolling about, and obviously he couldn't continue. And Bradley Saunders looks. I mean, they've been talking about it for a while as one to watch, and I've never, to be honest, been that impressed with him. But maybe as he steps up, he's going to start showing what he's all about. But the power in that shot was obvious.
I heard Seamus Macklin saying last night they want him to step up to welterweight, obviously. So you just don't know if he's maybe just leaving a wee bit on the scales, trying to make the weight, and maybe he's just maybe he was a fully fledged welterweight. I know Tommy's quite high on Bradley Saunders as well. Oval McKenzie, I think we were all kind of looking at that fight there last night, saying that it might be a decent enough wee scrap. Right hand, right on the tempo. John Lewis Dickinson dropped him heavily, and he got up. He beat the count, in all honesty, but the legs just betrayed him at the last second, and the fight was waved off. Kurt, Steve, did you see the fight as well, mate?
Yeah, I agree with your assessment there. Oval's just one of these guys. He's just a bit of an upset man, isn't he? He got stuck in there. I thought Dickinson was going to win the fight, and he was doing okay, but he was a little bit tentative early on, and he wasn't really throwing a lot. And then as soon as he took that punch, he seemed clear-headed. He was smiling. He was almost a bit sort of, regretful and embarrassed at the end, but nothing the referee could have done in that instance. His legs were all over the place, and it was a fair enough stoppage. He was talking about going up to world title level in the interviews before the fights. I'm not saying I would agree with that, but it was a decent enough scrap for as long as it lasted, I suppose.
The thing with Oval is, I think he weighed 193 pounds yesterday, and he weighed about the same against Conquest, but he's always said, light heavyweight is his weight. He's only moving up because he's a struggle for him to get fights light heavyweight. But I agree. I think Francis Warren said it. Over 5 rounds, that guy is dangerous to a lot of opponents. Yes, he can be outboxed, and he's not technically that good. But for those, I think all of his knockouts have come within 5 or 6 rounds. So I just think if Paul Smith is getting a title shot, why shouldn't Oval McKenzie? If you put him in with Bramer, I think he can land on Bramer, and let's see if Bramer can take what he can dish out.
Mm-hmm. I think Bramer's got quite a good chin, actually.
Yeah, he looks to be, yeah.
He just looks like one of those hard bastards, You look at him on that stare down last night against Bolante, and I swear, he'd have these shit in your pants, actually, in all honesty. Just before we go into the main event, I think we've got to touch upon this fight just for a wee brief period. Chris Eubank Jr. fighting, a Czech Republic monoblocker, Stefan Horvath, stopped him in 6 rounds. It's a terrible fight, in all honesty. I think Eubank going through the motions again. I don't know if he's just trying to kind of, make it look like to his opponents that he ain't shit or whatever. But the only entertaining thing about that fight last night was Eubank Sr. standing back from afar, looking at him and kind of prancing about, saying, "Yes, my son," And his comment afterwards, I think, deserves a fair comment as well. Is what he says. He goes, "There was no need to speak to him in between rounds because he was in the middle of an exam. No need. He's already done his revision, So I thought it was a really good comment by Eubank Senior there last night. But not much to write home about there last night, lads, was it?
No,
it's just Eubank Senior. I mean, it seems to me they're both in a competition who can grab the most headlines. Eubank Senior's still trying to keep his ego going by getting headlines, by just being a total dickhead as usual. And his son, I mean, apple didn't fall far from the tree with him. I mean, he's another dickhead. I mean, he's basically the English Broner. I expect a video of him flushing nightstand the bog soon with shit on him. He's just a moron. I mean, I don't mind showboating. No one minds showboating at all. But when you're showboating against a pregnant Latvian or someone like that, what's that telling me? Showboat against someone, you know, go in there against Billy Joe and showboat against him, or showboat against another guy. You know, that's do it then, and then we'll all be impressed. But to me, it just doesn't look good when you're fighting a guy who really, you know, he's giving it his best, and you're just humiliating him. He can't win. Well, you know, and he's constantly turning his back and doing these stupid little poses and. You know, I mean, the guy's got talent, but I just think if his name was not Chris Eubank, I mean, how many people would be, you know, talking about this guy? You know, he seems to be a bit like Broner. He needs to make these headlines to make himself look better, and, you know, maybe like Broner, when he steps up and faces someone who can actually punch back and hurt him, we'll see the same result.
I believe we've got Alex back on the line. Are you there, mate?
Can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you now, mate. I mean, in all honesty, when Eubank wants to switch it on, you know, he can look unbeatable at times when he throws his punches, etc. I mean, he kind of slightly telegraphs uppercut at times, but I think, you know, they're either going to boot this in a clever manner. You know, they're obviously kind of, you know, Bobby Rimmer was on Twitter last night going absolutely incandescent with rage. You know, they're obviously talking. They're not talking their way into a fight, but just the way, you know, their mannerisms. And I think they're getting to a point where somebody wants to beat the shit out of them, and they're going to get that big fight eventually with this attitude.
Yeah, look, I've never been impressed with Chris Eubank, and I'm still not really impressed with him at the moment. I think people are believing that just because he's beating up these nobodies and he's doing it how he wants, that somehow he's got a lot of talent, and I just can't see that talent at the moment because he's not demonstrated it against anyone worthwhile. You know, that fight last night was just a complete farce. It was all about Chris Eubank Sr. more than his son. First 2 rounds, Eubank did absolutely nothing. You know, that Horvath guy, he was obviously outclassed, which says a lot, you know, about him when I consider Eubank to be classless. But, you know, he was game and he came in for a good fight, but he just ultimately got battered down by a bigger man. He's got a bit more power than him. I'm really not fussed about seeing Eubank. You know, just look at, he's 16-0 now, and he's fought absolutely fucking nobody. Paul Butler is 16-0. He's a world champion now. He's beaten, you know, solid competition, and people rate him as one to watch out for. He could easily go ahead and further into bantamweight, win a couple more titles, go back down to super flyweight and win a couple more titles. What's Eubank going to do? He's going to, you know, feed off of his dad's name for the next couple of fucking years, not getting any sort of personality for himself, and just being a fucking waste. And it's, you know, useless.
And one of the commentators said as well, I don't know who it was, but he said, you know, maybe Senior's doing all this to try and take a bit of pressure off the son.
It's clever.
But he also doesn't help his son by saying, you know, right now he could beat anyone apart from Andre Ward. I mean, even Golovkin he could beat right now. I mean, that's putting a lot of pressure on. And when you're acting like this, again, like Broner, you've got to be able to back it up. And because when you go in there, people are going to want you to lose, and they're waiting for him to fall already. A lot of people are. So he's going to have to back it up. And I'm not sure whether he's going to be able to do that. And I'm not talking about the best guys in division. Even against Billy Joe Saunders, who is still a prospect really himself.
Steve, Alistair, you know, I think Alex has pretty much said it all. You know, anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, I think Alex's assessment of him was slightly harsh. I think Eubank's got, his offensive skills are quite good. He's just got defensive lapses, and he doesn't have a particularly good work rate. But I think when he steps up to European level, probably he'll get exposed quite badly.
Yeah, I think Kurt summed everything up I was thinking about Eubank Jr. I mean, if he's fighting at a decent level of opposition, then you can sort of, you know, put up with the dancing around and all the stupid antics, but he's fighting in against a guy there, and he's just completely insulting the opponent and insulting the sport, because at least when he was with Mick Hennessy, he was fighting against sort of area level UK guys, you know, guys who are going to have a go, the likes of Terry Carruthers and, you know, Harry Matthews, are at least having a go. But, I mean, these guys that, since he's gone on to Box Nation, they've been putting him in with are absolute diabolical, and his dad's just sort of trying to cling on to some kind of relevancy within the sport. From what I can see, he's just, you know, bringing on the haters and all this type of stuff. But I thought about the Broner comparison myself, but the thing was with Broner, whenever he started being an arsehole was only really, I suppose, around like the Ponce de Leon sort of fight, which he would have been, 18-0, say 19-0, something like that. I mean, before that, was he on the radar as a dickhead? I mean, he wasn't fighting Latvians anyway. Eubank Jr.'s level of opposition's terrible. They said they're going to step him up next, but I wouldn't be holding my breath. Like.
And the thing is as well, he's taken all the headlines. Rawlin interviewed him afterwards. They talked briefly about the fight, and then he was talking about his dress sense and whether he cut his sleeves himself or whether he bought them like that. It just tells you, I think it's just a joke. And I just thought, just get this guy off. It's just ridiculous. I mean, talking about fashion of Eubank, which is awful.
Why didn't Rawlin ask about the level of opposition, and say he shouldn't really be in with a guy like that? Why didn't he question him on that instead of talking about his frigging shirt?
Main reason was John Rawlins' name isn't Ian Darke. I remember Ian Darke pulled up Frank Warren for Joe Calzaghe fighting that Brazilian guy before he fought Eubank, saying that guy should never have been ranked by the WBO and all that sort of stuff, and Warren was pretty pissed about it. I forget the guy's name at present, but anybody who's seen that fight, should go back and watch it and watch the post-fight interview.
The thing is, some people can get away with, fighting if they're softer opposition, if they're, they need more, ring time or whatever. And if they say, they acknowledge, I'm not ready, I need more rounds, I know my position's not great, blah, 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 and you can do it like that. But when you're shooting out the mouth saying you're ready for all these guys and you're fighting these pregnant Latvians, it's terrible, and it just doesn't do yourself any good. I mean, he could have got in there, and I think he could have been a fan favourite, because I know Eubank wasn't a fan favourite at the start, but during the end of his career, he became, the fans liked him and respected him especially when he moved up and faced Carl Thompson, a much bigger guy, and they respected his toughness and stuff. And I think the fans would have took to that, but they've just gone the Broner route, the Floyd Mayweather type route, rather be hated, than not known at all. And I think it's going to end badly for them, to be fair.
That's true. That's a good point, actually, because whenever he was having fighting on the Fury undercards in Belfast, when he only had a few fights at that point, maybe 3 or 4 fights, and the fans got right behind him when he came out. It was like, this is Chris Eubank's son. This is maybe the next sort of big fighter we can get behind. Everybody knows who he is. There was no need to go the nasty route so quickly. I don't know why they had to do that. Just
get from talking about him, and obviously more views.
I'm not going to talk about him, Andy. I'll not talk about him.
I mean, who would put him in the likes? I mean, would you put him in the likes of Eamon O'Kane with Nick Blackwell? I know he fights with Matchrooms. Maybe that fight's not possible. Adam Etches, I know he's never been on television recently. I think he's a Hatton fighter. I think.
Well, he's already coming back next month, so it's going to be another one, isn't it? It's going to be another, road sweeper or whatever. So that's the fact. I mean, it's going to be nobody again. These guys are being put in to make Eubank look good, and the thing is, at times he's looking good, but at other times the crowd are just bored because he's spending more time posing than actually doing anything. When he lets his hands go, last night he looked good, but he can't fight for 3 minutes of a round. I think that's fairly obvious. He's extremely lazy with his work rate, so. I just don't know what they're going to do with him. I mean, who knows? Is he staying with Box Nation? Is he going to sign with Matchroom? If he signs with Matchroom, obviously it'll be a different story.
Yeah.
Eamon O'Kane would be a good fight for him, but I was talking to Eamon on Friday night, actually. He's rated like 12th or something by the IBF. I think they're hoping on maybe somebody in the IBF or the WBC pulling O'Kane in as a voluntary or something, so I don't know if he'll be there for it.
Interesting. Main event, I think we've all seen this fight apart from Alistair, I think. Very, very competitive fight, very, very tight fight. Stuart Hall lost his IBF bantamweight title against Paul Butler, who stepped up in weight for the first time, or I think it was for his second fight at the weight, I think. Split decision victory for Paul Butler. 115-113 to Hall, 115-113 and 117-111 to Paul Butler. I think the 117-111 from the Danish judge is a wee bit kind of wide for Paul Butler. He had a very, very good start, Alex. I think the first 4 rounds, the hand speed, movement was very, very good. But as the fight wore on, Hall's size, strength just kind of started getting to him slightly. And even though he had maybe the most flashier combinations, it just looked like that when Hall was landing, some of those rounds were going to Hall because he was landing the heavier, effective shots. At the same time as you got to give Butler a wee bit of credit as well, because when he was on the ropes, he was doing some good defence on those ropes as well. Not a lot of his punches were landing. But at the same time, as I think Butler's maybe kind of best off maybe moving back down in weight to super flyweight, because I think that the guys like, especially up at bantamweight, maybe like Jimmy McDonnell for instance, I think just slightly too big for him at that weight.
No, I agree. As soon as he stepped in the ring, you could see the size difference, just absolutely massive. And Paul Butler didn't really belong at the weight. I mean, Stewie Hall's quite a big bantamweight anyway, but Paul Butler, he just looked like a little kid in there. And at times when Hall was on, in the resurgence, and he was just coming forward and he was just using his size and using his physical advantages, he looked, basically like a little kid. He was getting beat up by a little kid. I thought the fight was really good. A lot of us, I think most of us really picked Paul Butler to dominate it. We all thought that he had, far superior technical skills, far superior speed and defense than Stuart Hall. But, Stuart's shown his grit. He's shown that he's got the heart and the will of a champion, where he lacks, and almost definitely lacks the ability of a champion. And he showed it last night, and he wasn't just going to let this young upstart take his belt. The first 4 rounds were clearly Paul Butler's. I thought, his superior speed is just the combinations, and he's just skittering across the ring, easily. He was dancing about on his feet. He looked like what Sergio Martinez looked like when he was back in his prime, just hopping along, getting along fine, landing some great lead right hands, brilliant stuff. Then Stewie Hall caught up with him. You almost thought that he was going to knock him out at some points because he got him to the ropes. You just thought that, has Butler gassed? Has Butler ran out of ideas? What's he going to do here? But then he comes in for the last 2 rounds, the championship rounds, and he really puts it on Stuart Hall. He really knows that the fight is in the balance, and I thought it was an excellent performance in those final 2 rounds. And I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes next. I really can't see him campaigning much longer at bantamweight, given how the size affected him last night.
Yeah, Steve, I think the next fight up, I think, you know what it's like with IBF, they're very stringent on the mandatories. Randy Caballero will be next, unless he's going to vacate that title. What were your takes on the fights, mate? Because, it did seem like he wasn't really having the authority with his punches by the middle rounds, but, he was a gritty wee bastard, and, very, very sound technique.
Yeah, I'll give Butler his respect for winning. I thought that it was very close, and I actually thought Hall might have done enough to nick it, but I was very much in the minority on that, so I'll not fall out with anybody over it. I didn't take an exact card per se, but I thought Hall might have just nicked it by a point or something. I felt that a lot of Butler's combinations were hitting Hall on the gloves, but Butler seemed the more sprightly of the two. He seemed like the one who was more in control. Hall has this sort of plodding look about him. He was coming forward, but it was very short steps, and he was never hitting Butler consistently with a jab, even though he had the reach advantage, and he wasn't going to the body either. I was very surprised that Hall didn't attack the body more, because whenever he got Butler on the ropes and Butler put his hands up, I noticed his elbow came up very high, and it seemed like the right hand side of his body was there for the taking. But Hall wasn't throwing the left hook to the body. There must have been a reason why he wasn't unloading on him on the ropes. Butler was very fast, and in the 11th and 12th, I thought Butler was really starting to gas in the 10th round, and fair play to him. He came back in the 11th and the 12th, and he nicked it but Hall's had a good run. Nobody expected him to, I didn't expect him to beat Malinga, and he put the absolute performance of his life in, took the IBF title. Farcical defence against Ward, you can forget about that. He's lost to Butler, but, he might be able to jump in there again. Just one thing, actually, what I remember. How come Butler, was he a voluntary or something? Was that only his second fight at bantamweight?
Yeah, I think it was, mate. Hang on 2 seconds, actually. I've got the record.
I thought it was his first fight, wasn't it? I thought he moved up. It was a voluntary.
No, he fought his last fight in March. It was at bantamweight for one of the WBA Intercontinental title against Oreste Bernarbe Niva from Argentina.
Yeah, because I was looking at the top 15 ratings, and he's not. I don't even think. Oh, he is. He's number 11th. Sorry, in the ratings there. He's behind Lee Haskins.
It was a voluntary defence. It must have been.
Right. Okay. So he's going to fight He's going to fight Caballero next, isn't he?
Yeah, it was, because up until about 2 weeks before the fight, the IBF they weren't even sure that the title was going to be on the line, because they wanted him to fight the mandatory, but Warren and Hobson came together and managed to sort it out and get the title on the line. But now whether Butler will fight Caballero, I mean, I have my doubts, to be honest.
Kurt, mate, you want to mention a wee bit about Dennis Hobson, and Alex, I'm going to come back to you, mate, on a comment I want you to answer, or a question I want you to answer anyway. Fire away, Kurt.
Yeah, well, Stuart Hall, this guy got the... I know there's some guys out there who don't consider him a real world champion, I get that. But, this guy's an honest pro, he's worked hard, he's got this title with a really good performance. And he was offered by Hearn a chance to fight McDonnell in a rematch on the Froch Groves bill, and Hobson turned it down. Now, if anyone's seen Hobson's interview with Kugan Cassius about a couple of days before the fight with Butler, the man detests Eddie Hearn. Obviously, Eddie Hearn's got Jamie McDonnell, so things have obviously gone from there, but he was talking about how in 2 years' time he and Warren are going to have all these world champions. They're going to be some sort of dream team. What he's done, he's basically stopped Stuart Hall from appearing on a massive bill, the biggest night in British boxing history, and basically got him a fight with a prospect, in Newcastle, and handed the title to Frank Warren. That's all he's done, and now Warren's just going to say thanks for that, see ya. And now Stewie Hall's left where? Nowhere. And now what's the chances that Butler's just gonna dump the title in the bin and go back down to weight because he won't want to face Caballero? I mean, I feel sorry for Stuart Hall because he's worked hard. No one expected him to do anything, and he's got that title, and now it's gone, all because of Hobson's personal dislike for Eddie Hearn. And I know we bash Hearn and Matchroom, but Stuart Hall should have been given a chance to fight on that bill, and in a fight where if he'd won as well, I think he would have been great for his career, but he was never given the chance, and now the title's just been passed over to Frank Warren now.
That was leading on to the next question, Alex. Frampton back on the rise again, got a world champion back in the stable, and a fighter as well that he's done something that Eddie Hearn still to do. He's managed to bring up a fighter from the bottom right to the world title.
Absolutely, and he's also got the same amount of world champions as Eddie Hearn now, so they're on even footing, one champion each, and obviously Eddie's champion isn't home. Carl Fauci stole him from Mad Mick, so well done to Frank Warren. He's doing very well at the moment.
What about Quigg and McDonald though? They're world champions, are they not?
No.
No.
Here we go. This is what I want to hear, boys. Let's get it discussed. Why is he no world champion? Because I said it before. The WBA, they've created some bullshit. I mean, I'm going to go back to that article I wrote on them last December. At the time of writing that, they had something like 33 title holders across the 17 divisions. That is a disgrace. You've got. Let me get this right now. They've just. Do you remember the time when they were talking about Golovkin fighting Fletcher, and I forget who the super champion was at middleweight at that time, but the Russian guy, he was fighting for the interim title, and they stripped him of it because there's someone else. They totally fucked it up anyway. So recently they've now managed to make Golovkin super champion. They're going to have Fletcher fight I forget who for the regular title, and they've got the Russian guys that Chudanov, he's the interim champion. You've got 3 title holders at super bantamweight. You've got Quigg, Redondo, and what do you call the Venezuelan? Sermano, and then you've got bantamweight. You've got Moreno, McDonald, and who's the other one? I forget anyway. I mean, it's just a complete mess. And then you're going to have at some point as well later on this year, you're going to have Vladimir Klitschko, who's a super champion at the WBA, and you're going to have Chagayev fighting Oquendo for the regular title. It's a complete and utter joke. And it's the same at the end of the day. If you've got 33 champions or 33 title holders of the WBA, how much are they charging for sanctioning fees? And a couple of $1,000 or something per fight.
It's a percent, isn't it?
It's usually a percentage skimmed off, yeah.
Look, we got to be honest. I mean, all these bouts, they're good for the casual fans. I mean, Joe McDonnell, Quigg, they can say they're the champion of the world, the best guy in the world, blah blah blah. They're not going to mention Rigondale because they don't need to, and people will go. It sells tickets. Whenever you see a fight hyped by Sky, they're not just going to say X against Y. They're going to say X against Y for WBO title. Frank Warren's got all these WBO international, African, Pan-American games title. They're bollocks, but they sell to the casual fans. The title does that, but we know they're a joke, and I can't blame the fighter. The fighters are going to do it if they're given the chance to do it. They're going to do it. So it's up to these guys. Once they're given these titles, they need to face the top guy. I mean, Rigo is the WBA champion. They need to face him. Shagayev and Oquendo. I mean, that's just a joke. I mean,
in Chechnya, no less. In fucking Chechnya, after all the places you wouldn't have a fucking fight, why just hold it in Kabul or fucking Baghdad?
I mean, I can understand titles being given out. Like, say if you got a guy who holds a couple of belts and he can't make his mandatory because he's got this other belt and he's fighting another mandatory, for example. I can understand them putting an interim title and then saying, you must face the winner. And that's you can understand that a bit. But even then, it has to be two, top-rated guys. It can't be a Shagayev who, has got a disease and hasn't fought for how long. He's not even allowed to fight half of the countries around the world because of the disease he's got. And he's fighting Oquendo, who, fair play, he's fought the hard way up. He's looking for a title shot. But how are these guys rated so highly? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Is that Oquendo? He's fighting Oquendo.
Yeah, Ruslan Shagayev against Oquendo later on, is it this month or next month, in Chechnya. Grozny.
So, who in the mixer chat or who on the panel is going to that fight then?
Fucking hell. you need to, listen, even the hazard tape wouldn't make me go there. Anyway, listeners, just to let you know, as our colleague panel here, panel colleague Steve Wellens managed to get an interview with Barry McGuigan and Carol Frampton at the announcement of Frampton's September 6th challenge for the IBF Super Bantamweight title against Kiko Martinez, which will be coming up very shortly. And after we do so, we'll be going to our Twitter questions and we'll discuss the Frampton Martinez fight maybe a wee bit later on in the podcast. Just bear with us a second here and we'll get the interviews up for you right now.
You must be delighted to be getting this rematch, Kiko, in Belfast. It's what you've been working hard on for the last few months.
Yeah, well, we tried endlessly with Golden Boy and Richard Schaefer's team, Al Heyman's team, and we just got, the cold shoulder. They weren't interested. They made it known that they weren't interested in the fight. They'd have to sit out, wait till the mandatory. Mauricio Suleiman done his best to pull it forward to September, but we had, radio silences as far as the fight was concerned. She didn't want to do business with us, and it's bizarre. It's not bizarre, but I think Santa Cruz is a great fighter. But before the Cazares fight, he talked non-stop about fighting Frampton, and then they weren't interested. So if you keep banging against the wall and you're getting nowhere. So Jake then has a very good relationship with Samson Leokovic, and he opened discussions with him, and it was all pretty seamless, really. You had to pay him an awful lot of money, but a staggering amount of money. But it's not, as I said today, what we're talking about. We're bringing the fight to Belfast. We've got the big show, the wow show coming to Belfast. That's the most important.
Is there anything regarding the venue you can say? Anything?
No, we're looking at a number of venues. We'll have it finalised in a couple of weeks, and Kiko will come over and have a face-to-face with Frampton, and we'll invite the general public, and we'll make it open not just to the media but to everybody, and we will hopefully have the venue sorted out by then. Tickets will be on sale then, and we are working feverishly at the minute to get things sorted.
I thought Carl was well ahead in the first Martinez fight, but there's a narrative that's built up that some people seem to think Kiko was doing pretty well. It was quite even on the scorecards.
Yeah,
what was your opinion?
I think after 6 rounds it was quite even. Carl might have been a round 2 up, And then we saw what happened afterwards. But that's past tense. We don't look into the past. We look into the future. We look forward. Avanti. That's what we do. We know he's a great fighter, Kiko, and he's proven since the defeat to Carl that he went and won the world title and defended it 2 times. But I just think Frampton is a fantastic, exceptional fighter, and I think he will win. And I think he will win in emphatic style. And I think everybody will have a great night of boxing. They'll have a great fight. It's going to be a great fight.
The Romero and Hasegawa fights, do you think they suggest that Kiko has improved, or as Shane suggests that maybe it was more to do with the deficiencies of the opponents?
It's just they're not Carl Frampton. That's the difference. Carl Frampton is a different fighter than those guys, and that's as simple as it. I don't want to sound arrogant. Frampton is an exceptional talent, and he is a really, really top stellar fighter. And so he can defend against whoever he wants. We don't care about that nonsense. All we know is that Frampton's going to win. Yeah, that's for sure.
Just finally from me, it could be on HBO TV, is that certain, or still negotiations? It is going to be on HBO.
It's on HBO.
So the Americans will get to see Carl as well.
They will get to see Carl. It might be delayed, but it will be on HBO. And it's the beginning of what we're again, this is just chipping away and moving along slowly. Sometimes these things can be accelerated, but we've had a number of political issues and people trying to block us. That's just the nature of the business and the nature of the beast. And people putting out false information, people jumping the gun, people talking and we can't stop that. And I do my best to mitigate that, and I try to be straight with you guys and tell you honestly what's happening, and as much as I can. But ultimately, negotiation is, by its very nature, confidential. Negotiation is negotiation. Sometimes I say to the press, leave me alone. Let me negotiate. Let me do it without trying to second guess everything. So that's what happens, Steve. But that's the business. There's a lot of politics going on, a lot of wars going on in the fight game at the minute. Right at the very top, Golden Boy are going through a dreadful time, and that might have been sort of. I don't want to give them any excuse, and they had every chance to come back to us. They had every chance to talk and discuss things. They made it very clear they weren't interested in Carl, and we'd wait till the mandatory. Jose Suleiman done his very best to bring it forward to September, but radio says the kid has to have action. He has to have a plan. He has to go forward, and. Please God, Carl wins and wins in style against Martinez, and then they'll have maybe a greater interest than when it's a unification fight. So whatever, but we've got to get on with things, and we're very happy, and you guys should be happy, because what I've done, I told you what I'd do, and I promised that I would bring it to you, and I've brought it here. That's it. And all these other guys, we're talking about it's this and it's that and the other. They didn't deliver, we delivered. End of.
Good luck on September.
Thanks, Miss. Bye, Steve. Take care.
This is it, Carl. The big ones arrived. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's. I'm happy. I'm obviously over the moon. It was the deal was done with the fighters and stuff a while ago, but we were just waiting on confirmation from the IBF, and that was only done yesterday. So I was kind of just waiting on everything to get pushed through, and it has, and I'm excited. It's a big fight. It's a big opportunity to win a world title against someone who I've already beaten. And saying that, I'm not going to take this guy lightly. I'm not going to think it's going to be an easy fight, because I don't think it will be. I think it'll be tough. I think I'm an improved fighter, and I think the result will be the same.
There's a notion of some people there that because you've knocked him out before, it's sort of going to go the same pattern, but do you think that's like an oversimplification?
Yeah, I think people kind of over here, they're expecting me to win a world title. They just think it's going to happen, and it's not that simple. And that brings pressure with it. But I'm expecting myself. I'm expecting to win a world title. And saying that doesn't mean I'm going to train any less than I did before. This is going to be a tough fight. It really will be. But I push myself hard in training all the time. But a world title on the line, it's just going to make me train that extra bit harder. It's going to be a great night.
So you've got to the 3-month training camp coming up now.
Yeah, and I'm fit. I'm fit already. Shane's been over here a couple of days and taking me in the pads and stuff, and surprised at how fit I am, and I'm in good shape already. And the camp is the camp is just about to, ramp it up again.
I suppose go back to last October, maybe party. You were hoping to get Martinez then it kind of went about. It was in Santa Cruz and it kind of come full circle again.
Yeah.
Is this what you've always kind of really wanted, the Kiko rematch? Or was it just any?
No, it was just a world title, to be honest. And you got to give Kiko credit because he's coming. Santa Cruz seemed keen as mustard before Cazares fight, and then it was just radio silence. It was nothing from Golden Boy, and he didn't want to know, to be honest. And I just want to be fighting for world titles. I don't want to be waiting around, and now we've got it. Gives me a chance to fight for a legitimate world title. Once you've done that, you're a champion. You're in the driving seat. You can start making a few demands yourself.
Do you feel that you're getting a title shot at the right time? You were probably anxious to fight for a world title 2 years ago. If
I had the opportunity, I think I was ready to win a world title a year and a half ago at least. I'm just even more ready now. I'm a better fighter now. I think everything's just falling into place. Everything's just is looking good, falling into place. I promise nothing will go wrong on the fight night.
It's been a long time, obviously, since there was a world champion north of the border. Do you think maybe there's Wayne McCullough was the last one? Do you feel like there's maybe a sense of expectation up north, and maybe even a bit of an obligation on your part to fulfil your potential and give the fans what they're after, another world champion?
Yeah, well, there is. That's what I was saying. They're just expecting me to win a world title, but they know up here. They know in Northern Ireland about. They know all over Ireland about boxing. They know about a good fighter when they see one. So they're expecting it because they think that that's going to be the outcome. So again, with that, it brings pressure. But I don't want to let myself down, and I don't want to let the people who've been saying big things about me down, and I don't want to let all these people who are expecting me to win a title down.
And an outdoor venue is obviously something that's it looks to be on the cards. That was probably taking a few people from left field and stuff because the Odyssey fights have been so successful. Yeah. It kind of echoes Barry's world title fight, in '85 and off this road. Was he maybe have a wee bit of a part in that? Telling you, the importance of a bigger venue for a world title fight.
No, not at all. I think it's hard to create an atmosphere like the Odyssey, just the shape of the building and stuff, and there's a roof on it, obviously as well too. It's very, very hostile in the Odyssey, but I think to be able to. You obviously need to sell more tickets to be able to pay the champion more money to come to your backyard. So that's what we've had to do. It's going to be a great night. I am expecting. I think we'll sell 20,000 tickets for this fight. I think it's going to be a big night.
I suppose with being a world title fight as well, it's going to be even more manic sort of build up to it. I suppose a few more obligations. Is that something you have to be wary of just to keep the focus on that?
Well, you have to keep focused on the fight, but I enjoy that sort of stuff as well. I don't mind doing it. It gives you a wee bit of a break and just changes things up again. And I'm not a fanatic. I train hard when I have to, but I'm not going to be lying thinking about this guy for the next 13 weeks or however long it is to fight. So it's good to do all that sort of stuff. It splits it all up, and I'm looking forward to seeing him when the venue's announced and when they have another press conference. I can't wait to set my eyes on it again.
Carl, sorry, you said in the press conference there you think you've improved slightly. Is there anything you're going to be different, or do you think you just need to do the same preparation as the first fight?
Well, I just have to train. I train harder for every fight. I always train a little bit harder. I think my body's adapting more, and I'm able to push the boundaries with every camp. So I'm just going to train harder. There was mistakes I made in that last fight. There was things I done wrong, and I'm going to obviously I'll watch a lot of footage from the last fight. I'll have a look at what I've done wrong. I know already. I know what I want to do. I think he's going to be although he's improved, it's going to be the same style. He's not going to change his style. He's going to come forward. He's going to be aggressive. And that's what I'm expecting. But
because of the first fight, the way you were the first person to stop him, do you think he'd be a little bit hesitant to make you head on?
Potentially. I said it there. I think he might have already been tamed. And although I think he's a better fighter, have you seen his fight against me? He was relentless and really, really super aggressive coming forward. His fights that he's won recently, Matabula and the Japanese guy, he's been coming forward, but not as ferocious as he was against me. So maybe there's doubts in his mind. Who knows? Whatever comes, I know he's going to come forward. But whatever else he brings, I'll be able to deal with it.
And come September, Carl, it'll be 19 months since you last fought him, and only 2 fights in between then. Whereas he's, as recently as 6 weeks ago, he had a fight and defended his title. Does that make you feel that he's more ready, or do you just want to get into the ring, and get fighting again?
It's all about. I think there's nothing better than fight experience, but it's all about. I think a lot of it's to do with training camps, and I've trained hard. There was a fight that fell through and stuff in between that, and a few different things went on, and we've made a world title fight now, and obviously it would have been great if it was a little bit sooner. He's the champion, so he kind of dictates when he wants to fight. He doesn't want to fight any sooner than the 6th of September. So it's it could stand by him that he's been busy, but I haven't been out of the gym since the last fight with him, really. So I'm going to be in great shape.
What we'll do in a minute then, we'll go to our Twitter questions. I'd like to thank our listeners again for sending in these questions. Let's see, we'll get the first one up and I'll go to you, Alistair. You've been very, very quiet for the last 30 minutes or so. This one comes in from Sean Brookshot at Sean Brookshot. Who do you think wins a potential fight between Butler and McDonnell?
He's AFK, I think.
Is it nowhere? Okay, Alex, you take the call, mate.
Butler and McDonnell.
Yeah.
Again, it's I noted the size difference between Butler and I didn't realise that it would be that much of a significant aspect of the fight. And obviously McDonnell's quite a big fella as well, isn't he? We saw how he just towered over the I can't remember the guy's name now, but the fella he fought in Wembley, and he used that range. Yeah, Ratchawat, the little Thai fella. He just towered over him, and his range was just easily picking him off. And Butler again is quite small, and if Hall's got the range to Steve's mic's going a bit weird there, I think.
Steve, your mic sounds a wee bit weird, mate. Maybe the mixler. Anyway, Alex, when you go, mate.
Yeah, I mean, if Hall's got the range to sometimes trouble Butler, you have to worry that, definitely McDonnell's going to do the same, especially with his far more refined technique, his far better jab. And, yeah, I mean, I'd probably pick McDonnell in that fight. I mean, I'm quite a big, supporter of Paul Butler's. I think he's going to go on to do great things. But seeing him last night, I'm just reiterating the same point I made earlier. He's not really suited for bantamweight at the moment until he fills up a bit. He grows a bit older. I mean, how old is Paul Butler? He's still quite young, isn't he?
23, 24, I think.
Yeah, he's only, a relatively...
25.
25, is he? Oh, I thought he was a bit younger than that. I mean, he's only got, they've got a relatively young lifespan at those sort of weights, but he might go to bantamweight in a few years, but honestly, he should just be sticking down at super flyweight, because I think Jamie would probably beat him.
I think he would probably beat him as well, just the sheer size difference and the problem. But, I mean, I think it would be good for work rate, but I think McDonnell being the bigger natural bantamweight, I think he'd be able to work it more over the 12 rounds rather than Butler. I think would probably tire him maybe after 6 or 7 rounds.
I mean, they'd both shoe shine, wouldn't they? I mean, neither one would really hurt each other, but like you say, it's just whoever lasts longer.
Right, back to the question from Chatsu no Hado. Alistair, mate, just before we got cut off there, will you lot give Cotto some respect now, and does Floyd try and target the middleweight belt?
Well, I think, I'm sorry for the live listeners because I'm repeating myself, but we said at the start of the show there were so many asterisks on that performance last night, it's difficult to give Cotto particularly huge D's on that. That being said, he was one of my favourite fighters at 140. I liked his run at 147 up to and including the first Margarito fight. I just thought he behaved a bit classless thereafter. I'm quite happy to see that he's now adopting a style that's close to his old 140 style. It is quite exciting to watch, but, Sergio was just so right for the picking and so fucked in the knee last night that it's difficult to really give full credence to that performance. And for Floyd, it's really going to be a commercial exercise of whether or not Cotto represents a good payday. I would expect the fight to be at 154, 155, seeing that that's what Cotto weighed in last night, so I don't think it's unfeasible that that fight gets made at just slightly above the light middleweight limit for the middleweight title. It's really just down to Floyd and whether or not that's the fight that brings in the most money at this point in time.
Just to let the listeners know, apologies about the technical difficulties. We had hoped to bring the Barney McGugan and Carol Frampton interviews. What we'll do is we'll need to edit it into the show, which will be available for download in a couple of hours' time on Tumblr, Mixler and on iTunes, which you'll be able to get from either obviously iTunes and from the boxasylum.com website. Next question comes from David O'Hara, which I've already kind of covered really. Where do you want to see Cotto go now? Well, the only person I want to see him fight is two people I want to see him fight, either Gennady Golovkin or Sergio Kovalev.
Not Vlad Klitschko then?
Yeah, well, we're kind of pushing it a wee bit there, mate. But we'll go to the next one from David O'Hara. Will Kell Brook blame being weight drained for sensationally losing to Porter? Steve?
Yes.
I think he will as well. I think he's I think he's tight to the weight. I honestly think if he even they were to win the title, I think you would probably see him vacate it within a matter of maybe even a year.
That's if the fight even goes ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say, am I crazy to think the fight's not going to even take place?
He's not going to blame being weight drained because he's not even going to fucking fight him.
Well, I think we should start a wee syndicate. Actually, I think we should start taking bets. You know, maybe £5 to get in, and the winner takes all, so to speak. So you kind of pick what date that Kell Brook pulls out of this fight. And
and the method of injury as well we need.
Yeah, and if it goes through with the fight, I think we should just donate the money to charity, which proves we're no bad bastards. So
sounds good. I think obscure foot injury. I'm going to go for.
I'm going to go for a pulled muscle in his cock.
I'm going for dislocated eyebrow.
Dislocated what?
Dislocated eyebrow.
All right. Or what about flatulence or something like that? You know, like maybe his arse starts clapping. He pulls a muscle in his arse or something like that. You know.
I'm going for injured toe when running, and it's going to be, I'd say, first couple of weeks in July. I think that's when we're going to hear it.
Somebody in the mixer just said thrush, which I think is quite a good one.
or Paul McAllister, runny nose. Brain disconnect. Right,
joking aside, if he doesn't take that fight,
his career's over if he doesn't take that fight.
Because a bit like David Hay, people have lost trust in him. But Kell Brook, I mean, how many fights is he going to pull out of? So he, all joking aside, he needs to take this fight, and whether he can win it is another thing. But he needs to make sure he takes it. And if he does lose, I don't really want to hear any bullshit excuses, to be honest.
Next question comes from First Class Boxing at First Class Box. It's a kind of group question. On a scale of Alec Morris to Matt Bowes, how big of a Matchroom fan are you? So Alex Morris's class is generally one of the biggest Matchroom haters, and I believe Matt Bowes basically kind of licks the sweat off Eddie Hearn's bollocks.
Well, so Alex Morris is comparable to probably Frank Warren in who hates Matchroom more. So that's the level there you got.
Alistair.
I'm not in the extreme as I'd say I'm in like the bottom quarter. Alex's quarter, but not really in that so extreme as Alex. In the sense that I just don't find the Matchroom cards particularly appealing. Miss Matchroom's a very good pun on their name, to be honest.
Steve?
I don't mind them that much, I suppose. Eddie's okay. I'm not the biggest critic of them, but I just moan generally about everything. So yeah, Matchroom's just the par for the course for me.
I suppose a bit like the man in himself to defend himself, Alex.
I'm offended that I'm some sort of extreme in this. I love Eddie Hearn and all of his shows.
Alex has to get his backpack checked on the way in, doesn't
he? Fucking brilliant. Next question comes from Declan Taylor at Deck Taylor. Who does everybody want for Mayweather to fight next, realistically? And predictions for Canelo against Lara. I'm still going with Canelo in that fight, and Mayweather, I want him to fight... Fuck, I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't give a shit in all honesty, because he's never going to fight who I want him to fight. He's never going to step up and weight to test himself against some of the bigger guys like some of the greats have done in the past, so I'm not interested. Guys, fire away.
I saw someone saying earlier that Floyd's got the potential to hold all 3 lineal belts across welterweight, junior, middleweight, and middleweight.
Lineal champion at welterweight, though, is he?
Well, not technically, no, but he's pretty much the number 1 guy.
Kurt, Steve, Alistair. What do you think, Thurman? Porter?
It's hard to say. I mean, who do we think or who do we want? I mean,
careful.
I think it's going to be Maidana again, I'd imagine. But you know, whether he can. I mean, it's Mayweather. I mean, fights usually go the same way, so it's hard to. You know, he's the best boxer in the world, but it's hard to really be excited for his fights because you know he's not really going to be tested. And I think Maidana will be next for him.
I tend to just pick on who I think deserves some money in their bank. And Maidana does so. I mean, like Kurt says, all his fights go the same way. Like Andy says, he's never going to fight anybody that's a legitimate challenge, so you might as well give Maidana the payday, because I think Maidana has earned the right to have more money in his account than Floyd.
Next question, Alex. You know what's happening here, mate. You're up next. You've been classed as a ducker and all sorts under the sun. I've been defending you today, mate, on Twitter and stuff, you know, so I can't defend you anymore. Rob Palmer's calling you out again for the 4th week running, I believe. I believe he has some family things to take care of over the last couple of weeks. But he's called you out. He wants you to name opponents for the following fighters for the Echo Arena card on the 12th of July. So who do you want? Tony Bellew, Nathan Cleverly, Callum Smith, Paul Smith, Stephen Smith, Chris Jenkins and Rocky Fielding to fight on that date?
So not many choices then?
No.
No. Right, I'm going to preface this and apologise to the fans and the listeners at the moment, because this is going to be a very boring and monotone discussion, because I have to pander to...
just think you should just stick to the main guys, Bellew and Cleverly, because it's a long list, isn't it?
No, I've put the effort in to appease Rob, so, you know, you should
we can't have him ducking on this one, but we've got to have him answer the question properly. And Alex, I hope you managed to get him some of those title fights as well, mate.
No, fuck that. I'm not pandering to all his list and his title shot nonsense. Okay, we're going to start. Obviously, it's a Liverpool show. It would be ideal on this show to showcase a lot of the Liverpool talent that's being on there. We have to also take into account that a lot of the fighters that are on this card have recently just, you know, had a couple of tune-ups, or they're going to be fighting a few, or attempting to fight for a world title soon. I mean, Paul Smith is being lined up for Abraham. I believe Stephen Smith's going for Moura. Obviously, Bellew and Cleverly are being lined up for each other. So, in essence, this whole show is just a tune-up show. So, Rob's question was a bit loaded in itself. I mean, what does he want me to do? Does he want me to see these fighters against who I think would be excellent step up for them? Does he want me to see them in against fighters that are relevant and affordable and realistic, or just fighters that I want to see them fight?
I think it's affordable and realistic. I think he was talking at Kurt, wasn't it?
I don't know, to be honest.
Well, I'm not going to go for the completely affordable, realistic route, because I saw some of his lists and they're a fucking joke. And he constantly bangs on to me about you know, having the money to put on these shows and having the budget to do so. And you know, you can't really value that. You can't. I'm not a matchmaker. I'm not in the business enough to make a judgment on what sort of money a fight. Excuses now. I'm sounding a bit too much like Stevenson or the Heyman fighters. So let's begin with you know, Nathan Cleverly and Tony Bellew, who I think they should fight. They're obviously in very similar positions at the moment. Both just moving up to the weight. They both come off of a knockout win over some very mediocre opposition. And I made a criticism of the both that they should be fighting proper cruiserweights who have been at the weight for a decent amount of time. And most of these are sort of interchangeable. The one that stands out for Tony Bellew for me is BJ Flores. There was pretty much a big beef between those two a while ago when Tony first moved up to cruiserweight. BJ is calling him out, saying he doesn't belong at the weight. He should piss off back down to light heavyweight. He's got no chin. And BJ's been a bit of an inactive fighter, and I don't think that it would take too much money to bring him over here, because he's already said he's willing to come over here and fight Tony. So I think that would be quite a good fight for Tony Bellew. There is Michunu, who we've seen against Eddie Chambers, would be good for either man. Obviously, he's looked excellent, and we're all looking out for him. I don't think he costs too much to bring over either, but obviously he's very high risk, and they're not going to really risk that fight. There's a bit more of an obscure name in Felix Cora Jr. He's been stopped quite a few times. He hasn't really got a high KO percent rate, and I think that's a bit of an Eddie Hearn special. He's also ranked quite highly by the WBO, which seems to be the route I think Bellew's taking, the Huck route. I think Tony could probably knock him out quite easily and get the Huck fight and get an absolute arse kicking there. I wouldn't mind seeing either of them against Makabu. We saw Cleverly was being lined up to fight him before he dumped Frank Warren and jumped ship, and Makabu would beat the fuck out of both of them, but I don't really expect it. Fragomeni would be an interesting fight, I suppose, if you want to go for a sort of tune-up. I don't think he, again, costs too much. People sort of know who Fragomeni is due to the Hay fight.
Alex, do you think maybe this was a rhetorical question?
Possibly.
Might as well get the Bible out and read that to us as well, because this is just going on all night.
I prefaced it with saying this is going to be boring shit, so I'll just go with them. That's them. Oval McKenzie might be a good fight. Joshua versus Skelton, fine. Rocky Fielding, I think he's fighting Derek Edwards. I think he'll lose that. Callum or Paul Smith, again, interchangeable. I'd like to see Callum against Sergey Kamitsky, or that guy that Arthur Abraham recently fought, Shecklocker, who went 12 rounds with him. Julius Jackson, the other Jackson brother, who looks quite good. Not the actual Jacksons, obviously, but,
Michael
Peter
would have been good.
Yeah, he would have been excellent. He's very good on his feet, isn't he? And Stephen Smith, I wouldn't mind seeing him against the guy that he pulled out before their last fight. That's Fernando Salcedo. But Stephen didn't really look that good against the replacement, I didn't think. So it'd be difficult to judge what he should be doing. I mean, obviously they're just going to try and cash him out against Moira, and yeah, obviously I'm boring the fuck out of everyone, so I'm just going to leave it there.
Well, there you go, lads. You can't be accused this week of ducking the question at hand, so we've got to applaud Alex for doing that. Cheers, Alex. I believe we've also got a caller coming on shortly. Kurt, is it Josh Tebow, I think we've got coming on?
Yeah, I'm just going to add him now to the call.
No problem. Does he want to slip off Cotto, or is it going to be, magnanimous in defeat for Martinez?
I think he wants to talk about the British cards, I think.
Alright, good stuff. Coming on shortly. And after that we'll go to our Bellevue of the Week segment. Now we will try and bring the intro music to Bellevue of the Week just to see if it works. If not, we'll just get it edited into the show for the download. And Josh hasn't come on yet. Josh, you there, mate?
Hello, can you hear me, guys?
I can hear you, mate. What would you want to discuss, mate?
Just about the Butler fight. I think he was fantastic. Well, outstanding. I scored it 115, 113 for him, I think.
Yeah, that's what I had at
yeah. 13. But I think he was a little bit nervous as well for big crowd and, world title fight. I think he could be a lot better than that. I went sparring down at his gym a couple of months ago, and sometimes in sparring he just looks incredible. It's a bit of a strong comparison, but he reminds me a little bit of Floyd earlier in his career when he used to have the higher guard before the shoulder roll. He throws the double jab right hook. That's just an amazing combination, and I think we should be celebrating the guy. I know, no offence to Brian Rose or anything, but guys like that who are just being too much overhyped and people don't know anything about Butler. I don't know what you guys think, but
he's a great wee talent. I mean, I do like his hand speed. I don't know what you think, Josh. Do you think he should be operating up at bantamweight? Do you think he should maybe see him back down at super flyweight?
That was the thing. I was talking to him when I went down to his gym, and I said, "How far can you move up?" Because I was thinking, is there any chance he could fill out to super bantamweight? Obviously, he's not. Looking at him last night, he's just way too small for that. Because I said to him, "Are you not worried about any super fights? If he ever gets to that level, will he be able to get any super fights down at Superfly or?"
What height is he? You've seen him in person because I've not got it listed.
Yeah, but Stuart Hall's quite tall for the weight, isn't he? So, yeah, he's okay. I think he could do a job against McDonald. I think he could. But whether he'll have any super fights though, I don't know. I just don't know. Do you think he'll have to move to the dark side as well to
Well, I think someone mentioned that. I think, or it was maybe Stuart Hall were talking about maybe moving across to Matchroom, but I really don't know. I mean, he's got the title at present. I think it really depends what Warren does for him now from here on in. I read somewhere last night, as I think the IBF rules state that he could maybe step down to super flyweight because he's the champion at bantamweight. He could step in straight away for the vacant for the IBF title at super flyweight. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, yeah, but what I mean is, I mentioned to him that he kind of reminds me of a Ricky Hatton, not in the way he fights. He's a lot better technically than Ricky Hatton, but as in he's a down to earth kid. He likes a beer. He has a lot of following. He took 600 from Ellesmere Port to Newcastle last night, which is not a bad following. And I think if they want to push him enough, they could get him to be like the next Ricky Hatton of British boxing. But he's just obviously not being pushed enough. And
well, I tell you what, actually, I followed a couple of these fighters at super flyweight. Now, if it was to move back down, I mean, I watched. I don't know if you've seen Carlos Kudras against Siriskats or Ringevezi, the Thai fighter. You know, Ringevezi is a pressure fighter, and he's got a fantastic left hook to the body.
I've seen a few highlights of him.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen a few highlights of him.
Yeah, and Carlos Kudras, he's a classic boxer. I think another good fight would maybe be Kohei Kono. I think his style, with Butler's boxing style, maybe make an interesting fight. I just don't think he'll maybe win that fight off the back foot if it's in Japan. Narvaez, WBO champion, he's aching for some sort of test. I don't know if that's maybe too soon for Butler because he is an established champion. Pushing 40 now, he's so many defences, the WBO title. I don't know who else you got, the Kamedas, South Africa maybe, Zolana Tete. I think Edgar Soda's moved up in weight, Juan Carlos Sanchez Jr. There's some good fights there, but I just can't see many of these Thais or Japanese coming over here.
There is.
Clout.
Yeah, there is some good fighters in that weight, but would it get any ignition from the casuals? I don't know. I don't know if any of them watch it, and not on Box Nation either.
No
one's going to buy Box Nation for Butler, so I think he's going to have to move over to Hearn if he wants the bigger paydays and if he wants to fight McDonald as well.
Do you agree, guys? What do you think?
Well, the problem is as well, he's in a weight class where around the world it struggles to get recognition, and all of the top guys, Andy said, British boxing hasn't really got these good fighters down those weight classes, and if Butler is going to pick up titles and big world title fights, he's going to have to travel, not to America, but further than that, and it's hard for him being down there because he hasn't got a lot of rivalry down there. You look at middleweights or welterweights, there's usually guys they can fight and get rivalries going, but being so small, it's going to be tough for him, I think.
There's the year 5 fight, isn't there? But that's about it that he's got really to build a rivalry with.
Yeah, I'm just going to say to you, Josh, you just know that Frank Warren, if he stays with Frank Warren, isn't going, considering the shit that Warren's given Hearn over the years by saying, he's allowed his fighters to go to America and get bashed up, stuff like that. Warren doesn't strike me the type to let his fighter go to Japan or Mexico to fight these smaller guys like Hernan Marquez and stuff like that as well.
No, I agree with that. What was I going to say? That's what I was saying to him though. I think if they push him a bit more and give him the exposure, start telling people he's a bit like Hatton and he likes a beer, people will start wanting to watch him. Instead of giving people like Brian Rose exposure, give him instead, but let the promoters work together, because it's not just about a cold war, it's about trying to push this good talent, and
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at me, I think Oscar's trying to put a hand across the table to Bob Arm to try and get things sorted out. So I think we need to see something similar over here, because then you're never going to get a Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn fighters to fight each other unless it's a mandatory position.
No. But like I said, I'd love to see the McDonald fight, and obviously he's not. But I rate him as in talent wise. I rate him just as well as Quigg and Frampton, and they're quite low weights, and obviously they've been given the exposure. I think Frampton has, because I've said this before on a question to the pod. I think Frampton's quite overrated just because he's Ireland's biggest talent, and I know for a fact I spoke to Paul as well, and he'll want to fight these top fighters at Superfly and bantamweight. He won't be scared of not calling out Rigondeaux and people like that. They just don't want to mention it. It's comedy really that he's just like Voldemort. You don't mention his name, Rigondeaux. So yeah, I think he should be pushed just as much as Frampton and Quiggin. But I do honestly. I think he'll have to move to Hearn as much as I don't like the guy. He's going to have to.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
It's a fair point. Anything else you want to broach with us, Josh?
Just before I go, with the Frotch and Groves fight, obviously they were mentioning the Durrell fight. What the fuck has happened to Durrell?
The running man, I believe I don't know where he's went to.
Still running, isn't he?
Yeah, I know he had a few mental problems and stuff, like the Abraham fight. He kind of lost the plot after that fight, didn't he? But I think he's got to. I don't know what you guys think, but I'd say he's up there with one of the most wasted talents in boxing in recent times. Anyway,
along with Joan Guzman.
Yeah, that's another one.
It's just a shame.
It's a wasted talent, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if his heart was in it, but
no.
I'm not going to say he's not a fighter of sorts. You know, he takes a lot of guts to get in the ring after all. But it's just, you know, it doesn't strike me as one of those guys as I think it's down to the trenches. He's not going to dig it out. You know, you saw it against Abraham. I felt he looked for a way out in that fight. Yeah,
it was a bit weird, wasn't it? It was quite strange nearly because he was absolutely destroying Abraham. I mean, we've seen Frotch make Abraham look quite bad, but he was just absolutely destroying him. But it's just a shame because he was one of my favourite fighters, and I'm a big fan of the pure boxing art. So, but it's a shame.
Anyways,
thanks for having me on.
Anyways, thanks for that, Josh. Hopefully, calling again, mate.
Great podcast. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Josh.
Right, lads, we're hoping to bring up the Bellew of the Week segment, and I think Kurt is going to have an attempt to try and get the intro working this time. I had problems trying to get the interview in regards to McGuigan and Frampton, which we'll discuss a wee bit after the Bellew of the Week segment, so I've never really got a big fight schedule for next week. Take it away, Kurt, if you can maybe try it, mate.
Let's be totally and brutally honest here. Sean Corbin makes Valery Brudov look like Ivan Drago. It's as simple as that. He's beat what's in front of him tonight. He faces me. He's going to visit mental demons again. And let's get something straight. Come to me, mate. You come to me. Next time, ain't no judge is going to be needed. I'm going to do worse than Kovalev. I am going to do worse than Kovalev.
On Saturday night, mate, you better hold it together. I'm going to smash it near you to pieces, mate. I'm going to hit him. When he gets in the ring and we get 10-ounce gloves on, I'm going to smash his head to bits. I'm going to do it November the 30th against all odds. No matter what people say, the journalists write what you want. All as I'll say is tune back in and then look at me on December the 1st when I am world champion. It's as simple as that.
I'm willing to die in that ring. It's as simple as that. I am willing to die. I'm willing to die, Saturday. Is he? You fucking rat!
It is simple as that. It's the return of the Bellew of the Week segment, and to be honest, actually,
I'm going to nominate Rob Palmer for his question.
Alright, I'll go to you first then, Alistair, mate.
I'm going to nominate Rob Palmer for his question earlier.
Okay, Rob Palmer's got a nomination. I've got 3 here. I've got one for Spencer Fearon. On his Ringside Toe-to-Toe podcast, he mentioned that Carl Froch and Lennox Lewis deserve knighthoods for what they've done in British boxing. Now, I don't know what Lewis fought for Canada for the Olympic gold medal, so I don't know if that is going to count against him. And I don't know what Froch has done to deserve a knighthood. I mean, you know, I suppose if Henry Cooper gets one, then I dare say you've got to give one to Froch, Calzaghe, Hatton, and the whole shebang. I've got a nomination here for Barry Jones on Eubank Jr. He's like a serial killer in there, he said last night. Now, if he only just turned it on then again, you know, he maybe is a serial killer, but I just don't see it. And this one really kind of almost made me piss my pants. Tommy Brooks, is it Tommy Brooks his name is? I think. David Price's trainer.
Oh, yeah.
Says that this time next year, David Price will be ready for Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, that's undiluted piss he's speaking there. That's absolute and utter verbal diarrhea.
Depends how much he's earned in a year, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where to start with that one.
Who else said they'll be ready for Vlad next year? Was it last week someone said it?
Joshua, wasn't it?
Yeah, Anthony Joshua, that's it.
Joshua,
they're all going to be ready for him. 2015's the year.
So he's got any other nomination like this? He's got 4 so far.
Anything Eubank? I'm trying to think what Eubank said. There must have been something there.
Well, Eubank never said much last night, did he? He was just standing there, kind of looking fucking the bee's knees with that suit jacket with no sleeves on, you know.
Yeah. Do you have to say something to win the Belly of the Week award, or can you win it through just standing around prancing and silence?
I don't know, really. What do you think?
Let's just put him up anyway.
I haven't got a rule book for this one yet, so I think, fuck it, we'll put Eubank. See, the thing is, if we put Eubank Sr. up, that means he could maybe retain. Did he not win it last week? Who won it last week? See, nobody's retained the title so far.
I don't think he won it last week. He won it the week before, didn't he? I think because that's when he said about he was ready for everyone, or he'd beat Golovkin right now.
Steve, you got anything, mate?
No, not really. Barry Jones was annoying me on Saturday night. He seems like a decent enough fella, so I'm loath to pick him, but other than that, Eubank Jr., I mean, just bullshitting it from them.
See, I saw one from Eddie Hearn, but it wasn't actually this. I've only just saw it, and he was talking about Scott Quigg, and he was saying, about Frampton. He was saying, I've made the call to Barry, and they need to stop, basically bullshitting around. They're not going to get Leo Santa Cruz. They're not going to get Martinez rematch. They're just, let's make this fight happen. So I just thought that was quite funny, seeing as that rematch is going to take place in September.
Who was the guy who put that frigging article out that said that Quigg and Frampton was going on?
Boxing News, Phil DJ.
Yeah.
That got retracted pretty quick, did it not? Putting comments up and stuff like that from unnamed sources and unquoted comments,
I asked him on Twitter, how did he get hoaxed? I jokingly said, was it Rob Palmer pretending to be Eddie Hearn on the phone to him? And he blocked me straight afterwards, so I never got an answer.
A bit sensitive, is he not?
I think he is, yeah.
Alex, you get any nominations, mate?
No, other than, what's been said, really.
Right.
Good nominations this week.
So, I'm going to go to you all. You make your final pick. Kurt, who you nominate? Who you picking out? Rob Palmer, Chris, who's the nomination again? Spencer Fearon, Barry Jones, Tommy Brooks, and Rob Palmer. But I will put in Chris Eubank Sr. just for saying that the fact is, there's no talking during the exam. I like that comment.
I'm going to go with Tommy Brooks. I thought that was funny.
Tommy Brooks, 1 vote. Steve?
Eubank Sr.
Eubank Sr. 1-1. Alex Morris?
I have to go with Rob Palmer for putting me through that fucking awful question.
Alistair, your ticket, you'd go for Rob Palmer as well?
Yeah, might as well. I did think the serial killer comment was funny as well, though.
Yeah, I was going to pick Barry Jones, so it looks like the one and only Rob Palmer has been the recipient of this week's Belly of the Week award. Well done, Rob. Woohoo! As I say, if you get any funny comments, lads, you know what to do. Hit us up on Twitter, and if we don't see them beforehand, we will definitely find them across anyway. But there's not really much on next week, lads. We've got Demetrius Andre, he's defending WBO light middleweight title against Brian Rose, and Ruslan Provodnikov against Chris Algieri. Just briefly, Steve, give us a wee bit of breakdown on if you've got any notification on the plans for the stadium for the Frampton Martinez fight on September 6th.
Well, they haven't announced anything yet, which was a bit strange. I thought that they announced the fight without a venue. The Odyssey's too small, they're saying, so they're going outdoors on September the 6th in Belfast. Originally, they were talking about putting it in Ravenhill Rugby Ground, but I believe that's off for whatever reason. They're talking about putting it in the back of the King's Hall. There's like a big showground there where they have like agricultural shows and stuff like that. So they're talking about setting up a stage there. Other than that, it could be the old Maze prison, or nobody really knows. I'm saying it might be the outside in King's Hall. They're looking at maybe 15 to 20,000, around 20,000 if they can, capacity. But they said they're going to be announcing it over the next few weeks. And then when they announce it, they're getting Kiko over. And they're expecting a fiery press conference. And they're also expecting Sergio, if he can still walk, or maybe wheelchaired into the Europa Hotel.
He'll walk out like Douglas Barder or fucking Forrest Gump,
He'll be wearing his Forrest Gump leg braces, won't he?
Well, one way or the other, they're going to try and carry him in to come and help promote the fight. Like I said, he has fought in Belfast before, bizarrely, in 2004. He fought Richard Williams for the IBO title. So he'll be coming back over, and they'll announce the venue and talk about the undercard. They're hoping to put Jamie Conlan on for the British title and a few other local lads.
Interesting stuff. I'm actually disappointed. I mean, I'm actually in Spain that week, and I was actually wanting to go to that fight. I was gutted when I found it was official 6th of September, which is my actual birthday. And I'll be in Los Alcázares with a family for 2 weeks, and I'm going to miss that, almighty showdown between Vladimir Klitschko and Kubrat Pulev, Kurt, which I believe you'll be wanking yourself feverishly over.
I'm disappointed. I was looking forward to the Frampton fight. That's going to have to take a back seat to the Steel Hammer, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the Steel Hammer. I'll need to try and find a bar somewhere in Spain if I can try and sit down and watch that fight. And I'll tell you what, it will not be Vladimir Klitschko I'll be sitting down to watch. Anyways, guys, I know. Not much to talk about, but I haven't really seen much of this Chris Algieri. I'm assuming Rustam Vodnikov isn't going to have much issues with this guy. I think you haven't seen much of him either then.
I haven't seen much of him. I mean, I just think it's a bit of a strange one. I mean, Provodnikov's coming off that great win over Alvarado a long time ago now. When was it? October? And he's coming up to this fight now, and it's this guy might surprise you, but it seems a bit of a step down considering he pushed Bradley all the way, knocked out Alvarado, and then he's been on the shelf all this time, and now he's fighting this guy. So it's a bit of a strange one. I thought he'd been with a big fight, or a name opponent, to be honest.
It's partly about putting a New York fighter in on the Barclays Centre, isn't it? I think that's why they picked him. But that being said, I don't know whether he's Provodnikov as the opponent for this, if that's the rationale.
Mm. And he's Brian Rolls on this card as well.
He's fighting Andrade on this card, I think.
Is this on Showtime, this one?
It's on Sky actually next week, and actually it disappoints me that Sky show these cards from America, and it's only matchroom fighters that they show, especially like the international cards. It fucking bugs my happiness. Really, really does. Because there's been some great fights in America recently, and they haven't showed jack shit of it.
Yeah, in fact, actually, the Andrade Reyes fight's down as a headliner on this card.
So anyway, on to the main event. I mean, I'm assuming, I've seen Andrade a couple of times. I'm not 100% sold on him. I mean, he's a decent technician. I just think he doesn't put when he throws his punches, he's kind of, I've mentioned it before, when he jabs, it's kind of like he jabs with an open hand. So I don't think he actually gets full force of his power or any shots behind it. I think Rose his best chance. I don't know if he could outbox him or anything like that. I think he's just going to have to go for it. See if Andrade's got the gut. They've basically got the gut check in him to kind of go for it. But I would imagine Andrade's going to probably take it, either late stoppage or a wide points decision.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, Andrade, I agree with what you said. He pits pats. He's quite boring, but I think he's a cut above Brian Reyes. He should outbox him. Interestingly, I did not know that Brian Reyes lost to Max Maxwell. Did anyone know what happened there?
Did he get knocked out?
Got knocked out, sparked out, didn't he?
That's a bad loss.
Maxwell wasn't that bad then, was he? He wasn't like the journeyman he is now.
He got revenge in the rematch, didn't he? But yeah, that was a shock at the time. But for me personally, I mean, whatever you think of Andrade, I mean, I've seen him a few times. I think he's a pretty good fighter, but listen, he's way above Brian Rolls. Brian Rolls is British level, in my opinion, and I saw him against, who was it, that Maciel guy, when he got a split decision. I thought he lost that fight. He got a home decision, I thought. Fair enough, he's got the shot on, nothing against the guy, but, to me, this is going to be a 120, 108 decision. It's going to be round after round the same, and just depends how much. I mean, I wouldn't mind Brian Rolls, proving me completely wrong, but I just think he's British level at best, and that's just the way it is, I think.
Who do you think his best win is? Is it Alcine, do you think? Brian Rose's best win?
I'm trying to think. He knocked out old Vivian Harris as well, didn't he? I mean, that was probably his best win in terms of, he knocked him out early, which I don't think anyone was expecting to do, but I mean, Vivian Harris was well shot then.
Was that before or after Victor Ortiz done him? Vivian Harris.
Not sure. That was a couple of years back. That was against Harris, but he beat Sam Webb as well, didn't he? And
Prince Aaron.
But even the Alcine fight, he got the stoppage late, but didn't he need the stoppage in the last round because he was behind, or it was a really close fight again?
A shit stoppage as well, I thought.
Yeah, it was a bit of a dodgy one, wasn't it? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how he's got this, how he's ranked as #1 contender or whatever, but I just can't see him doing much, to be honest.
I see Glenn Tapia's back in action, 10-rounder against Kenan Collins on a card in Atlantic City. I just remember talking about, actually, when we were mentioning Hughie Fury's back in action next week against the ever-present and hard man of the boxing world, Mr. TBA. I just remember, as we were talking about as well, the IBF Super Flyweight title, I just noticed that Hernan Marquez is fighting McJoe Arue, or Arua, I think he's from Puerto Rico, so they're fighting in Mexico next Saturday for the IBF Super Flyweight title. So I can't see Paul Butler maybe stepping down now. I think Marquez would be a tough fight for him,
For Butler?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Is Butler going to hold on to the IBF bantamweight belt, or do you think he'll move back down, or what do you think?
I really don't know. I think it's a hard decision. He stays and fights a hard fighter, or he goes down and he faces a hard fighter. Marquez wins that fight. Marquez will bring it all day, all night.
Because there's a few options in the top 15. Just flicking through the top 15 there. If he fights Caballero, I'm not sure how good he is, but if he got past him, you think they might chuck him in with Haskins in like an all British, or maybe even against that Zhaikianov, whatever you call him, because Hatton owns him, doesn't he? Janat Zhaikianov, he's top 5 or something.
I don't know. I think the IBF will force the mandatory on him. I think he'll need to take that fight next. So I think one will need to dig deep in his pocket. Who promotes Caballero? Anybody know?
I'm not sure.
Bear with me a second, just see if I can find these details.
I get all the Caballeros mixed up, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I found them here. Known as El Matador. Ex-United States amateur flyweight champion, is an amateur. I haven't got any details on him as who his promoter is. But I think we're kind of out of discussion this week, lads. Anything else you want to bring up? Nah. Anyway, I'd like to thank the panel, Kurt Ward, Steve Wellens, Alex Morris, who has delivered, finally. Good man, Alex. Alistair McDonald. I've been your host, Andy Patterson. I'd like to thank the listeners for obviously your Twitter questions and your chat and the Mixler, and for our caller Josh Tebow. Just to let the listeners know again, is we've had technical difficulties trying to get the Carol Frampton and Barry McGuigan interviews into the show, so if you'd like to listen to us again or whatever, download on iTunes, Tumblr or Mixler, and you'll hear the interviews which will be edited in just after the fight previews. So I'd like to thank you all again for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.